Is this thing on?
He would bankrupt himself on purpose, show money around.
It's been a long bloody day here in Ottawa.
Immoral person.
I'm just here with the guys. We did the committee. Yeah, it's live right now. So we did the mental health committee today, and it looks like we've got a year and a half to get a inpatient facility design submitted.
But more importantly, right now we're going over Trump versus Hillary. So I think we got a Trump supporter over this way, and we're going Hillary. So
no, we're not. I say no to both.
No. He was pretty much in favor of her
not at all.
a couple of seconds ago.
No,
but,
we were laughing at the whole debacle.
Okay, we're kidding. They don't like either one.
Squeeze a chair in there. So, hey, we got a guy right here, and we don't get to be in the same room very often with our good friend Barry Westholm. He came into town, drove about an hour, half hour into town here and we have to do the push-ups in about an hour and a half, but we have enough time right now to do a quick show of the Veteran Guerrilla Radio. Today on the show, it's Barry Westholm. Say hello, Barry.
Hi there.
What's going on, guys?
So, what's your background, Barry?
My background? Oh,
Your
geez.
military.
The military, I first had my experience in the military and the first in my family when I was 16 years old with the 1st Hussars, a militia unit in London. That was my takeoff, and I didn't get into trouble that summer. So I carried on when I was 18 and joined the Royal Canadian Electromechanical Engineers, and I did that for 32 years. The last couple of years is when I joined the JPSU as a reservist, because I was part of the game, and that's where I finished my career.
Outstanding. Yeah. What years was that?
That was in 2013 that I finished up.
And when did you start with the JPSU?
2009, I was part of the founding group that started that up.
So where's home right now? Where are you living?
It's a little place called Westmeath, Ontario, just outside of Petawawa. Beautiful, very much in the rural area, actually the suburbs of a rural area.
So as we move forward in the veteran community here, you got certain SMEs out there, you got certain subject matter experts. Like if we were to talk about, say, deployment to Somalia and mefloquine, we would talk to the guy we talked to yesterday, John Doe. He's right over there, right? New styles and sunglasses, we'd probably go to Aaron.
Yes. That's my forte right there.
I don't bring much to the table myself, but if you wanted to know about JPSU, we would be talking to the gentleman sitting to my right, and that's kind of how we got to know Barry. And through this whole process, we're in a unique position right now. We're in Ottawa doing some work. There's being some adjustments done in JPSU, and Barry not only was aware of what was going on, he was in the organization for a while. Barry actually had to recluse himself of the organization due to the way he saw things and the way they ought to go and the way they weren't going. And then he's actually gone a step farther of not just putting a complaint out there. This man has assembled in infinite detail recommendations on how to fix it, on how to move forward. And so that was really what kind of attracted me to want to learn more about Barry. It wasn't just that he knew what was wrong. He actually handed them the Bible on how to fix it, or at least that's the way I looked at it. So that's Barry Westholm right there. So what are you doing now in the veterans file? What kind of things are interesting you today? What are you working on?
Well, what I started doing was trying to correct the JPSU, and I think that was probably a bit of a fool's errand, but one that I thought was worth my time. And certainly the people that were in the JPSU, they were worth my time, and I was really concerned about them when I left for what was going on to them in that unit. And so I spent a couple of years trying to persuade the powers that be to really invest in that unit as they should, and really support the people that were in it, so they didn't get through the cracks like they did in the old system. That didn't work the way that I wanted to. So I backed up a little bit and said, where can I spend my energy the best way? And so I decided to focus on Veterans Affairs Canada and those people that were still in the JPSU, specifically in the transitioning outstream. So those people that were injured to the point where they couldn't meet universality of service and they were going to be civilians. And my efforts to this end would to be to make sure that they are properly supported, the transition goes smoothly, and if it's not going smoothly, that those people get a pause. so that they can get their act together and they can transition with dignity and be, productive people as civilians.
So you've mentioned to me before when we talked about this, and by before I mean sitting over there like 5 minutes ago, the concept of stovepipes, the concept that as people come in to the JPSU, there would be an assessment in ideal forms, and you're either going one way or you're going another. So could you describe what you see those two ways being and how we could move forward with that? How is that actually going to benefit the soldiers? What we're going to do?
Okay, well, ultimately, how it benefits the soldier and the soldier's family, because we're all in this.
So what would the stovepipes be?
We're all
What
in this
would
together. One would be you're injured, and the injury's not so great that you can't transition back to the Canadian Forces.
Okay.
So you're going back. So you're in there, and the military takes care of you. You fall under the standard military regime, code of conduct. All that applies to you. So they have that one. That's the Canadian Forces. The other one is unique. You are injured to the point where you can no longer stay in the military, and you're going to be transferred out into a civilian sector. Now that's the one where the military sort of has to work with Veterans Affairs, with the communities that the bases are in, to make sure that that person is all checked out and sort of is demilitarized to the point
Right.
where they can become a civilian.
And so that would be part of the transition that needs to happen, but is not happening. Is that fair?
Oh, that's very fair.
Okay. And so everyone understands when a soldier gets placed into the JPSU, it is a unit. There was a time back in the day when a person would just be a patient, and they would continue being a patient, and that was essentially their assignment in life. So they would be in the platoon room every day, but not doing the things that was going on because they had medical appointments and whatnot. And so the concept of putting people into the JPSU, so not how it worked, but just the idea of the JPSU, did you think it was a good idea?
I think it's probably one of the best ideas that the Canadian Forces ever had. And I think it's something that should have been put in place right after World War I.
So that would probably contribute to why you're so pissed that it went sideways, is it could have been so good.
Well, actually, it still can be.
All right, let's hear about that.
Well, once again, all they need is a little creativity. All the expensive stuff is done. They've got to be able to let their soldiers go. If they're in transitioning out to be civilians, to stop the military aspect of it. There was one person I was talking to that got a reaming for having tattoos, and this person was transitioning out. I said, well, who cares? If this person wants to express themselves in a certain way, that's what civilians do. That should be highly encouraged. The same goes with civilian dress. This is all part of being a civilian. You don't
Right.
keep a person in uniform on the parade square until the day he or she transitions. That's the exact wrong thing to do.
I'll bring one up to you that has been an experience I've lived through. A lot of folks in BC a lot of military folks in BC don't realize that there is a separate medical plan you have to pay into, that medical services premium. And they don't realize there's a card because when they're in defense, it's handled for them.
Correct.
And next thing you know, they're released and they're getting all this hate mail from the government about why they haven't paid for the MSP. If they go to their doctor, the doctor demands to see that card before they get care. And where was the coaching on that?
Well, this is exactly what I'm saying. When you do transition a person without them being prepared, you're doing a huge disservice, not only to the person and their family, but to the receiving entity. So that would be the provincial government. You've got a person there that doesn't know their way around. So if you would have spent that little bit of time to say, this is what has to be done, and we're going to set you up, and it's complete, well, then you've got that smooth, seamless
Right.
transition. And all that is time and talking.
And I think a key thing that we need to remember is it's the same taxpayer, right? So if we are releasing people before they're ready to be released and they wind up in the correction system, it's the same taxpayer. If they wind up in the medical system, same deal. So there's no saving to the public purse to punt someone out the door before they're ready to go. In fact, there's just a series of loss. There's the capability we would have had by retaining that person. There's all kinds of other things that could possibly go wrong that will be on the taxpayer. Is that kind of what you've seen?
That's a black and white sort of look at it. You're losing a tremendous amount of talent. You know, the military brings forth all sorts of very specialist requirements and stuff like that that can easily be transferred to the civilian sector, but they don't do it. Same thing goes, with the heartache that's involved with transitioning a person incorrectly, the entire family can be fractured. And this is the thing that's really painful, is when you have families suffering. But the financial aspect of it, absolutely. It's a lose, 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 lose by letting these people go too early.
So let's go back for a second here. Barry's senior NCO, right? So he's led soldiers before. He knows how it's done, and I have to imagine that he didn't just see a problem and walk out the door. And I have to imagine that you saw the problem and you probably tried to fix it, and you probably tried to present the problems to people and tried to get action to solve it. So can you kind of walk us through how that happened? No names, no pack drill. We don't need to be saying, you know, it's this guy. But what happened when you first came forward while you're still in uniform and said, we got a fucking problem here, guys?
Well, the JPSU staff was made up of a really eclectic group of people, from Lieutenant Colonel RCR on the ground, on the front lines, right through Navy, hard Navy. Myself was, combat support. All of them with a tremendous amount of experience, a tremendous amount of skill, and almost to a person saying the same thing.
Right.
That the JPSU was destined for failure. And they said it very, very openly to the senior officers who disregarded what they said. So the senior officers made a choice to go forward with a bad design, knowing it would fail, with all of their staff saying it would fail. So yes, I was as vocal as the rest. I may have gone a step further because I was concerned that the senior officers weren't listening. I was concerned that suicides would increase, because we had suicides in my region. So what I did was I contacted my member of parliament as a soldier, and then I kept saying, we've got some really huge problems, hoping that my member of parliament could make some changes,
Okay.
Which didn't happen. So I kept trying to do it any way I could, and this is not my character. In the Royal Canadian Mechanical Engineers, I stayed within my boundaries.
Right.
Because there was no need to go outside them.
Right. You do it the right way.
You do it the right way, and everybody understood, because you told the truth. This is the situation, and you didn't have officers saying, well, I don't care what the situation is, we're going to ignore it and do this. But with the JPSU, it was absolutely unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. And it increased to the point where, again, our sections, which are normally, what's a good size section?
8 guys, depending,
Okay.
vehicle, more.
Okay, ours were 70. And those 70 people were ill and injured people and their families.
Right.
So you're looking at 150 people with one person.
And sometimes, was it not correct that you could actually have a ill and injured leader looking after some of those? Like, that's happened across the country as well.
There's nothing wrong with that if the person's got the right stuff.
Right.
Right. But what happened in the JPSU, you can consider it a ship that's sinking. If the ship's sinking, everybody's bailing water. The captain, the engineer, forget about the normal hierarchy. It's done. It's complete reactionary mode, and that's what we had to do with the JPSU.
Okay. So when you're struggling with this, you recognize there's a problem, you've recommended solutions, and you're just hitting a brick wall.
Right.
Were you the only one making recommendations? Like you mentioned that a lot of the other people were bringing this up to the senior officers that, hey, look, we got problems.
Yeah.
Were you finding that coast to coast or just in your JPSU?
Coast to coast.
Okay. And now I want to go on to another thing that we were talking about before we turn the camera on, and we're going to call this robustness. I don't know if it's a word, but it's the one we're going to go with. We were talking about the fact that, if there's a forest fire happens tomorrow, we can deploy the IRU within hours.
Right.
We could bring in aircraft within hours. I think your example was if we had to put a battalion in the Arctic, we could have them up there in 48 hours. And so we struggle when we see what we can do, and then we're presented a problem, and the answer is, well, it's going to take 18 months to rearrange that.
Right.
Or, well, we're working on it, and it's going to, give us time. And how does that make you feel when you know exactly how quickly these things can be solved with the direction and leadership to solve them?
That's a total failure of officership, and I've written that as well. That our officers are failing our men. And you've heard it maybe before about the inverse pyramid. Normally in the military, you've got the sharp end, the top guys, women at the top, and then they control what's going on at the bottom. Well, if you flip it around, you've got all the officers at the top in a wide base, acting like a couple of virgins in the backseat of a car, not knowing what to do. And meanwhile, down at the ground, are the junior officers, the senior NCOs, doing the best they can with all this nonsense above them, and they just, you know, and God bless them out there. You know who you are. You're under a lot of pressure to serve not only the military but in the JPSU. You know, you've got all these injured people to take care of. Those are the people that are showing the leadership in the military right now. The officers are at the tailor shop getting the red caps put on. They can manage to do that in a matter of weeks, but they can't help out an injured person. It just drives me around the bend.
Yeah, and we even see this in the retired community or the veteran community, if you will, is that we've got guys out there that have decided they're going to help other vets, and I'm telling you right now, they're doing the job of case managers. They just don't get paid for it.
That's right.
Right? And when you were in service, it was your job to be in that unit. It wasn't your job to go home and spend hours and hours writing pages and pages of research material on how to make it better. But you did that. And then that didn't get even actioned. So what was the actual thing, if you don't mind explaining, where you said, okay, that's enough? What was the straw?
Well, the straw was when my, so in my region, Eastern Ontario region, there was a very small command team. It was myself as a sergeant major, and my command team officer was a major. We were both of the same mind that we couldn't do enough for our people. There's over 500 people. There was 2 of us. And we knew that we weren't allowed to ask for assistance. That the brigade in Petawawa offered us assistance, and we weren't allowed to say yes.
Right.
So he did.
Assets there, you're not allowed to
Yeah,
get
because
it.
they know what's going on.
Yeah.
And the brigade commander said, well, geez, you know, you're overtasked. So my officer commanding agreed. We were overtasked, and since he said that, he was removed from command immediately, placed down into an office down the hall, and told basically to shut up. And then they replaced him with a yes man, and then that was my new command team partner. And that was it for me.
Okay. And that's where you got to the point of I can't associate with this anymore. Like I need to either fix it or not be here.
Well, no, the things that I've been doing after I got out is the exact things I should have been doing while I was in, but wasn't allowed to do.
Right.
They totally undermined the entire ethos of the Canadian Forces, as I understand it. Ethics were out the window. Our people that we were supposed to be helping were suffering. Families were fragmented. In my region alone, and this is a company size, so think of a company. There was 3 suicides, a number of deaths, a kidnapping, an armed standoff, a murder, and the list just goes on and on and on. And so, you know, when that sort of, you know, events are happening, that's a big red flag. Huge. But there's nothing. It was business as usual with the commanding officers.
So where does that put you now? Like you still see there's problems out there. We've seen some faces moving in and out of the organization. Looks like there's some changes happening. Do you have high hopes for it?
No, I've pretty much written off the Canadian Armed Forces leadership. When I hear officers saying, well, there are some success stories, and I know the JPSU, I said those in my mind, they're not success stories. You're talking about the survivors. They're survivors off a ship that's out there sinking while people are talking about it in boardrooms. So I'm really pinning my hopes with the Veterans Affairs, and specifically, and I hope they see this, is the Veterans Affairs Committee, who I was summoned to appear before. They seem to be good people with good hearts.
Sorry, and the committee would be the parliamentary committee?
The Parliamentary Standing
Roger.
Committee,
Okay.
you know, and we had some really good conversations. The thing I found is they understandably don't exactly understand the military, with the exception of Ms. McCrimmon and Mr. Lupa there.
Right.
Clark, I believe. So I'm pinning my hopes that they can provide a measure of common sense and respect to that outstream, where they can say that particular person is not ready to transition out. Canadian Forces, you're going to hang on to them, and this is what that person needs.
So if we were to talk, change tracks a little bit here and talk about this whole issue from the taxpayer's perspective, how do you believe what you were recommending was good for the taxpayer?
Okay, well, first of all, if you release a person that's in distress, he immediately falls to the provincial medical authorities. He could fall out of societal boundaries. He could be in trouble with the law. Could be in trouble with drugs. Again, you go to the family aspect. He could have a family breakdown, and it goes on and on and on. And I suggest people go to the I think it was the May 3rd meeting for the Parliamentary Standing Committee of Veterans Affairs and listen to the audio recording. There's 2 guys up there in Thunder Bay. almost broke my heart of what they're going through. They were transitioned before they were prepared, and now, you know, one's living in a basement, one's living in a garage, and that's not the way that a person that served the country should be treated. You know, they gave it all for the military, got injured, and then they were run over by the JPSU bus, kicked out, and now they're at the bottom of Canadian society. No need, you know, sacrifice to the military for Canada, understandable. But everything after that, there is no reason for it, and there is a price to pay. And I think there's a huge ethical price to pay to do this to your people that you're sending in harm's way.
So you mentioned that a potential way forward here is engaging deeper the parliamentary committee, and in fact getting them to actually perhaps get a little more spine, stick your nose into it. You have overall run the country, so ask the questions, demand the information, and hopefully from there, that's the way forward to get some action.
This is very simple. I suggested to them that they appoint people in VAC centers, give them the authority to look at a case, and if this case is transitioning out and it's complicated and the person and the family's not ready, that person can go to the military and say, nope, this family is not ready to transition, you're hanging on to them, and they have to be prepared in this manner. That way, you don't have this transfer of heartache to the civilian community. It's a respectful, it's what they use, care, compassion, and respect. Those are mere words if you don't do something, and they're just mere words as far as I can see. So they've got to actually do it, and that's how they can do it. It costs absolutely nothing. Zero.
So we're going to wrap up here in a little bit, but as usual, I want to turn the floor over to Barry. So Barry, my questions are essentially done here. What else do you want us to know about what you went through, and what you recommend that we do to fix the problem as it stands today? The floor is yours. Anything that you think I should have asked you, or anything else you want to express about those two things?
Well, the only thing that I'd like to impress upon the people that are watching is, as we're talking right now, there's a lot of people out there, and I know a few of you, that are suffering. And if I could do more, I would. So the government's not doing it. It's got to be individual efforts now. And we've got to let the government know that there's a huge concern out there for our veterans that are leaving the military not prepared. Joint Personnel Support Unit has got to be fixed within a month or two, not a year or two. And the government has to pay more attention to our veterans.
All right. So
You're not over it.
you heard it from Barry. Aaron, you got something to fire in there? What's up?
Well, I
We'll
don't know.
change seats.
Yeah, we'll
There you
change
go.
seats for a minute.
Do you want this seat?
No.
Oh.
Barry, how are you doing?
Good.
I'm really tired. My brain's starting to hurt.
You look fresh as a daisy.
We were waiting for months, literally, to find out what was going to happen today with this mental health committee thing.
Did it satisfy you?
No, it just now says, okay, we'll see what happens within a year and a half.
And is that? Well, we're in the same boat.
So they didn't say no, and of course they wouldn't say no because we have the ability to apply pressure.
What would you have liked to have saw happen?
A shorter timeline,
How short?
like within the year.
You think it could be done within the year?
Yeah.
So is that going to be brought up at another meeting or what?
No,
Jeez.
there's only so much we can handle though. We're part of the court case and we're doing this,
Right.
trying to get an inpatient facility, and no one else is going to do it.
Yeah. No, I think the concept.
tough.
We were talking about the inpatient facility, and I think it's a great thing. You know, soldiers have a common bond when it comes to military service that they can't have with a person that hasn't experienced similar events. And to have a facility where soldiers and families can congregate and discuss things with themselves, that in itself, I think, is a healing event. The fact that they get sometimes sent to civilian facilities where they don't know a sit rep from a triple R from, you know, a grid reference, it's very difficult for the person that has to try to communicate their experiences. Mm-hmm. They just don't know. But and it's not the fault of the physician or the clinician. It's just they don't know. They don't know about tour. They don't know about recce. They don't know any of that stuff.
No.
So it's very important to have like-minded people that have these experiences, have a place to share them. And I think that the concept is a really good one. I think it's a concept that was probably used in the past successfully.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I hope you do have success with it.
I do too. and I want to make it clear to people out there, like, we're going to have to draw up an outline of what this is going to look like in order for it to be presented to the minister to be considered for the 2018 budget. And as soon as myself and Brian and the people that we work with, doctors that we work with, have something on paper, we're going to do a show about it. It's going to be on public record.
Yeah.
And we feel that's very important, that everybody's on this ride together, all of us. It's not just me and Brian getting singled out, because there's always a bit of divide and conquer in dealing with a big power that be like government. Hopefully at the end we'll have a facility.
Well, you know, I think that the phrase divide and conquer is a good one.
It
you know,
is.
everybody out there now in the veteran community, big hearts, spending a lot of their own personal time and money, all of them fragmented. The Royal Canadian Legion used to be a powerful political entity that it seems to be kind of flaccid at the moment and not really doing the job expected of it. They should be far more vocal, far more focused, taking in all the information and presenting a very strong case to the government. One where the government should get nervous about it. And I hope that all these people doing these individual efforts can somehow be brought under one umbrella, which would make the government very nervous, and get the power behind the voices. Better said, one voice to get some change done quickly.
It's important that we have an army, because there's just like people like you will rise up on a single issue. I've had to on a few issues, but you know, John Dow on something specific, and we're all kind of like little satellites in the sky moving around, but we don't kind of like, I'm trying to get people together. You know what I mean? Because I know when I first started with advocacy, 2012, 2011, first getting on Facebook, and you just see this, and everybody's like, the ego and the dick measure is in full effect. 2011-12. It was messy, and it still is to the day. So, big part of this endeavor we're doing is to get everything on a public record, so that maybe more people will be able to advocate, better advocate for yourselves. Learn from our mistakes. If you ever want to do something to cause change in our society, what it really takes to deal with government and the glacial pace that it works and the games that they play, the dance, as they say. And is anything ever the way we want it to turn out? We have to have a dream, and it drives us, but you know, it'll be what it'll be. There's a lot of players at work to make this actually happen. A lot of people have to buy into it from all kinds of different departments in government. It's a long process of passing the file around and around, and reviewed. And
it's almost like being in a movie, a very frustrating movie, because you know, a lot of the people that I've seen speak on this program are subject matter experts. You know, they've had experience in certain theaters and with drugs, like what was it, methadone? So they speak to those. Everybody's got an opinion, which is great, but when you've got people that can speak to specific experiences, like I speak almost universally about the Joint Personnel Support Unit because I know it. I think that really helps with the credibility of your program. I think it's a great program.
we're at 28 minutes.
Oh.
Hey, does anybody have a question for Barry Westholm? Give me a question. Help me with my brain here. My brain is just kind of, got like 3 hours sleep last night, and then we had to do this brainy stuff all day. Us versus doctors. Give me here. Jeff Howlett, how you doing, buddy? And what happens when you have a bunch of unstable trained killers turned loose on society?
What happens?
I'm all right.
In some cases, politicians are formed, but no, you're good point. I mean, I remember going to write my firearms acquisition certificate, and they said, "Well, what do you do when you jump a fence? You attack." No, you don't do that. You have to do this and all that. So you're absolutely right, and I've stated too that you know the military and government spend billions on basic recruiting. They take a civilian, they break them down, break them up as a soldier, but as that soldier leaves to be a civilian again, see ya, out the door you go. And well, I mentioned this to your doctor.
And some of us are scrambled.
We're scrambled. So, like I say, you know, you have to pick out a tie. There's thousands of them. So it's important to be able to take that person who spent 32 years, you know, at the sharp end, decompress, say, okay, put all your kit away, wear civilian clothes, call me Barry, not Sergeant Major. This is what we're going to go through, and we're going to do our best to prepare you to be a civilian. That's the way it should be done. It's actually, you know, it should be a prerequisite. It's responsibility of the Canadian Forces not to send out people that are ready to, you know, go at your throat, but people that are you know, participants in society, for sure, aggressive ones.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So the program, the inpatient facility program, we don't want to use the word PTSD in its title because every program seems to like doing that one way or another, and because that will scare someone away from, potentially scare someone away from the program to begin with, especially someone that wants to stay in. My working name for the plan and the idea I've had since I went to an inpatient facility 3 years ago now was the name Reboot. Like everyone, a lot of people like to say they need a boot camp for when you get out of the military, right? Yeah. And in the case of a mental health issue, rebooting, like rebooting a computer.
Oh, absolutely.
Or resetting a bone that didn't get set right. Yeah. Like I know as far as the care I've had in the last decade, I need a re-break and reboot of the plan and
I think
my life moving forward. I need a foundational program, and it's a program that can catch someone 10 years later, and it's a program that we can put someone into that is at the unit, and the guys are starting to see that he's self-medicating, he's smelling a little pissy in the mornings, and we know, okay, he's starting to burn the candle at both ends. Or you go out on a training X and he wakes up from a fucking nightmare. It's like, he's got those symptoms, let's send him. Send him now, because you see a lot of guys, they start having those issues and they get treated like a drunk or a disgrace.
Yeah.
And it is so fucking wrong to do that because you're destroying that person's spirit.
I know if the JPSU was operating correctly, a lot of people said they would have been able to use it to take a knee, which is another military term, just to take a breather and get regroup just for a bit, so that they can go take some courses on whatever it is they want to take, get out of the military stream just to take a breather.
Regroup, that's a good name too.
Regroup
or reboot?
Trademark.
Is it trademark?
Is now.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
What, just a second?
Just a second. You'll have the papers in the mail in the morning.
We'll have one out west and it'll be called Reboot. And we'll have one in the Ottawa Valley, maybe on a river somewhere, call it Regroup.
The Alberta one will be called Unfucking.
Yeah.
Unfucked. Okay, I asked for questions. What, did we get any? We almost need a boot camp to become a civilian again.
Well,
see, someone just said it just before I was saying it.
That's it exactly.
See it? That's people say that.
No,
so
it's the truth.
The word boot, reboot, like rebooting a computer,
regroup, like you were saying.
it makes sense.
Well, even people that,
And the
for
doctors
example,
love it.
if you did 32 years in the military and you're
That
leaving,
attitude.
if you're leaving perfectly physically fit, there's no reason why, if you felt you required it, to take something to transition you to civilian. It makes great sense. It should be a responsibility
For the
of
amount
forces.
of money spent,
doing it, coming
investments,
in. Yeah, nothing to it.
and you know what? Transitioning someone out, taking the time, if they are going to need a couple years of getting stable,
Yeah.
Can they be educated? It's hard. Yeah, like I was told not to do anything. If I had to take a course, that it'd have to be like something I'm already good at.
Well,
because they don't want you to have a major downturn because you took on too much. But ideally, you want someone stable and then have a fucking plan. Like, okay, whether it's just starting to get into school, if they've taken maybe some introductory courses and some confidence building courses, and then doing a career sort of reassessment, maybe.
Absolutely.
Like through the BPSO.
Yeah.
And then have it all lined up for them, and okay, we're releasing you in July, and you're going to go to school in September. Enjoy August. Stuff like that, because a lot of the guys are 20, 25, right?
That's right.
They're young men, and we can't just sit back and wait until they're drinking heavily, and then they ruin everything, and then they get sent to an inpatient facility for addiction, and they're sitting there next to drug dealers and gang members. That is the wrong time to finally fucking help a guy.
Yeah.
We're trying. The reboot programs wants to catch guys before.
It's proactive.
Before that he's seen as the bad guy at the regiment, because he forgot to polish his boots there, and he stunk a little bit like booze a couple times, and kaboom, he's on the shit list and on his way out.
That's right.
Any questions? Let me see. Do anyone in Do we have anyone in government that is leading the charge with us?
The only people that I can refer to are the good people of the Veterans Affairs Committee. I've given them service papers on how to do it. What I'll do is I'll send the link to all the email addresses for those people, and I can also make available everything that I've provided them to you, anybody that wants it. You can read it, critique it, say if that works for you, tell them to get it done, because it costs zero money. There's no cost involved with the Veterans Affairs employee going, nope, that family's got to get more time in to transition.
How big's your team helping you with your advocacy?
My team?
How many?
I'm it.
He's it. So, hey, if there's someone that was working in a JPSU out there, or just fucking give me something to do, I want to get engaged, involved. If you're cooped up with PTSD at home, but you know your stuff, you're former sergeant major at a level similar to his, that you know some stuff and can be of some assistance. Is that worthwhile?
Well, that's worthwhile.
It's nice to have a team.
What's really helpful too. Yeah, I know I'm a lone wolf, but
We all
what's really helpful is there's a lot of talent out there, especially when you get up to the master warrant officer level with administration, and there's a lot of people that are being transitioned out that need some help in that manner. So if I can get some names where I can provide to junior ranks that need help with memos and things like that, they could really use your assistance too.
Right on. Let me see. Any more questions? Hey, Walter Callahan. Looks like we're going to be leaving to go to Toronto on Friday. We'll see you down there, maybe. Hopefully. John Collins, CISIP should never have the 2-year policy. Any thought on that?
Well, I'm going to go right back to the JPSU thing again. If, for example, you lose your sight, you know you're going to be transitioning out. Your transitioning starts the following week. It includes your physical welfare, but what they're doing right now is they tend to wait till you've got a 6-month window, and then it's go. No need. If you know you're getting out or you want to get out, you start that transition now. So it could be at a walking pace rather than a sprinting pace. It gives you time to explore things and maybe test the waters, and if things fail, say, oh, geez, I'm glad I didn't go that way, I can try something else. And then you can go that way, and maybe 2 years of trial, you find what you want. The 3rd year plus, you're feeling better, ready to transition. You talk to your VAC case manager. He or she says, you know what, we're going to give you the green light to go. And then away you go.
Yeah, right now they're like kicking people out of the nest, and hey, if they fly, they fly. If not, well, fuck.
Well, I know.
It's not good.
No, and it's a
and they go, gee, we seem to have this homeless veterans problem. Like, oh.
I know.
Really?
Yeah. And once again,
it costs taxpayers dollars, way more as a result.
Yeah, it's
for a little lack of care and time.
Time.
Taking the time with somebody.
This takes time.
Step away from your fucking computers and.
Yep, and look at the person, not the spreadsheet.
Person to person.
Yeah.
Questions. Troops feel pressed. Yeah. The doctors fought against my release in the mid. Okay.
Now, if there's somebody out there.
CISIP is a joke. Guys, questions, not ranting. We've created outrage. There's anger. People might be like lighting up torches right now.
Well, I'll let you guys know something that's quite important is I've asked the military since November to provide a blanket extension for anybody in the JPSU or anybody facing a 3B release they've refused. So instead, what's happened, if people come and tell me that they're in a situation where they can really use an extension, I've been successful, I think 100% in getting them an extension. So if you find yourself in a situation where what we've discussed is happening to you, if you don't mind, you can drop me a call or a message, and I'll put you in contact with somebody in the military that's fairly high up. Listen to your situation, and if it's warranted, and so far they all been warranted, get you that extension. One way or another, like I say, it's individual efforts, and if it's only one at a time, and those turn into success stories, that's great.
Outstanding. I had something there. Oh, just people don't hear our little background stories, the things we do for people. And when I was in an inpatient facility, I'm still like, how can I help people? And I had a guy in there who's become a good friend, and he had 4 tours in Afghanistan within 5-6 years, doing recon, 2 PPCLI. Fantastic person, but he got pushed over from 2 PPCLI to the range control of Wainwright, and he was having a real hard time suddenly, and he was starting to get the triggers too, and starting to drink, and the bosses started really putting the screws to him and putting pressure on him. And he said, you know what, Aaron, I'm not going to make it if I have to go back to that. I'm gonna lose it. I'm really struggling right now. And I called this man, and he wrote up a letter. He knew what to do. You wrote a letter for him that he then signed and pushed up to the base surgeon, who can overrule the immediate chain of command he deals with.
Correct.
And what did we end up with?
I've lost track of them.
Well, we ended up with that, within weeks it got sorted out that when he reported back, he was going to report to Edmonton,
Okay. Yeah.
to the JPSU there.
Yeah, things can be done. It's just a bizarre way of doing it.
It's just,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for people like us, he would have had a really rough time.
Yeah.
And it could have been jail, it could have been really going south.
Well, that's
Like,
what,
he's in there, it cost about $45,000 to $50,000 to go through an inpatient facility program. It's expensive, and he's gonna go back to the unit that put the screws to him, that put that pressure to cause him to start to break down like that, and they're gonna send him right back to it. And they're just like, like the Shark Tank, like, guys coming back.
Well,
They don't change, so
this raises a great point as well.
it's a tough issue.
Well, when we were dealing with sending quite a few people, because they were at the JPSU, to the facilities, the Woods facilities, and I think it's $50,000 a session. We send one guy.
It's $1,000 a day almost
Yeah.
at Edgewood, or not Edgewood, but
the Woods.
Homewood.
Yeah. So we
$1,000
sent
a
one
day.
guy back 4 times. Fair enough. But here's the deal: we didn't know what was going on in there. We being the supervisors.
The quality of their program.
Well, we don't know
Or if
anything.
there was a program.
No, it's like they go into a door and we look at the door and then they come out a month later.
Yeah.
So what we tried to do is to work up a liaison where the military staff looking after these people could get some cross-training to figure out, well, if they're getting coping mechanisms, how can we enhance their coping mechanisms
Yeah.
in return?
Yeah,
But
there has to be team involvement.
Yeah, and that's why your suggestion for the regroup
Mm-hmm.
is makes sense. You've
Yeah.
got a military program with military people,
Mhm.
and then you know what's going on inside the facility.
And here's the thing with this program, I'll give you another piece here. When you go through the 25-day or so program, you come out of there with a little book, like the book of me, like the operator's manual for Aaron Bedard, and I go home and my wife can look at it and, okay, here's his triggers, okay, here's some coping mechanisms, some distractions from those things, and here's some planning tips for planning a day when there's going to be these multiple triggers. A book of me, and then that book of me is not only for the family, but also to then in turn take to the mental health professional that you'll see locally wherever he lives. And the beauty of that is, you spin the wheel with mental health, and you get who you get depending on where you live and availability. And so this allows for that person that might not have the full ideal spectrum of knowledge and experience dealing with veterans, a how-to book of this specific guy.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's a great concept, and
Yeah.
people are really buying into it.
Operator's manual.
An operator's manual.
Makes sense.
With a 5-year plan on top of it, because
Oh, and warranty.
anyone
No.
who's gonna, drive for success, and you're gonna have to drive for success to beat PTSD, or to avoid getting into its triggers or having the full-on breakdown. It's hard work, so you have to be driven. So you need to have a plan. You need to have a 5-year plan at least, and a 5-year point review of that, and maybe a new plan on top of that. Maybe you have to go back for a 1-weeker at some point at benchmark points to get a tune-up, to have a check-in. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
Yeah. And then maybe it will have components for family.
Absolutely have
But
to.
it can't do everything, and you really have to treat the individual first and foremost. You can't, if you haven't worked me up as much as possible before you send me with my spouse to a program, I'm still a problem child,
Yeah.
like coming out of that program that will cause trouble. went through that experience, learned that the hard way going through canned praxis. 3 months later, I went through the Sunshine Coast Health Center. It was in the wrong order. So we didn't get the benefit. We didn't plan properly for that, going to that couples thing.
Well, I'll throw something else out there. Soldier On. It has a lot of positive spin-offs. We had a few events in Ontario, and the JPSU was sort of in charge of them. And we had an agreement where the spouses could come as support staff for the injured person, whatever way it worked. It was still sports related, but what a fantastic time it was. It had all these incredible and unknown positive aspects, where couples were going through similar things that, you know, the spouses would go over here, the soldiers would go over here and chat afterwards by the fire, and at the end of it, it was just, everybody was blown away.
Good energy.
Great energy.
That's
everything. And it was at a lodge, it was at Calabogie Lodge.
Yeah.
It was great, and one of the most poignant things, it's a little sad, was that one of the guys, sometime later, well, he died. And at his funeral service, his wife mentioned the Soldier On sports camp.
Yeah.
Was the turning point in the relationship, and the last few months that they had together, because of that, was probably the best time they've had in a while, because of this energy and this interaction with other people. So if you see a Soldier On event going on in your area, take advantage of it. It's great stuff.
There's Brian over there, he's dying. We're both dying, man.
We're done.
Me and Brian, we're burning the midnight oil. We're at 46 minutes. Oh, look at that. Dr. John Whalen has a question for Barry Westholm.
Nice.
Barry, is VAC interested in having an active role in JPSU org?
Yes. If you go to, again, the website for the Veterans Affairs Standing Committee and go to May 3rd and listen to that, they were very interested, and they asked me to submit further correspondence. I've been in contact with them ever since, including today, to keep them apprised of what's going on, and they do respond regularly, and they're trying to increase their education on what the hell's going on in the military, because they're civilians. And here's why I have a lot of time for them. They seem to be really good people, number one, and I know from watching senior officers in the Canadian Armed Forces talking to Parliament that they're getting bullshitted. The senior officers are lying to them. So you've got a guy, MWO, fairly low rank in the big scheme of things, saying A, and then you've got a general saying, oh, no, he's out of it, it's B. So they're naturally going to go towards the B. So what I'm trying to do is, by keeping at them with the truth and with examples of what's going on the ground today, let them know what the real factors are out there, and they do really seem to be interested. And again, I'll put all their emails up, send them to you, get in contact with them, and you will get a response, I can guarantee you.
Outstanding. So, we have to do that push-ups thing at 7 o'clock in front of the Supreme Court of Canada. And,
yeah, watch the papers for tomorrow. Did you get the certificate that we can do that?
what
Is
certificate?
it all cleared?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
We take his dog over
Yeah, looks like
several
That's
times
her
a day.
favorite lawn in Ottawa.
That's every service dog's favorite lawn is actually right in front of the Supreme Court of Canada. It's the best pooping zone you could ask for. And you got a rare Pokemon, didn't you, Brian?
I did.
Oh, no.
You got some rare Pokemon. We were over there last night, and Brian wandered off, and we didn't even realize what he was doing. And he's like, "Hey, come over here! Look at this, man!" And it's all dark. Go over to him, and we realize he's got his fucking phone out, and he's like, "Look at, I got the rare one. Look at it, leveled me up." And you fucking nerd.
And the medal. Got a medal as well.
He got a medal.
So you can see, if you're not transitioned properly, things like this can happen, which is why it's important.
However, though, it's a game that could get a guy out of a basement too.
Okay. Yeah.
Going out with the kids, maybe. Maybe that
Nope.
guy, like,
I'm-
just downstairs, like, Dad, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Come on, Dad, Pokemon, fuck, get the fuck out of there."
I guess if it works for sure.
If anything will work, it's ideal. We're talking to Aaron O'Toole. He might be around in the next 24 hours, and we might get to do a show with him. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. We're trying to maximize our time here, and having an opportunity to talk to you face to face, and to have you have a forum, be able to use our forum
Yeah, thank you very
to
much.
get as much mic time as you can get on something that people are starting to gravitate towards. Just the one we did yesterday's 2,500 views or so. That's pretty good.
That's excellent.
And we're not concerned with it getting out of hand right now, and we don't have the energy to drive that or to try and generate and build up a movement or following. What we're trying to do, what we are doing right now, is building up a library, a good solid repertoire of knowledge and information from all the top advocates in Canada, and then we're going to do a tour across Canada from the 1st to the 10th. The 10th will be back here in Ottawa for a finale type show, and then we're going to boost the hell out of that one. And at the same time boosting it, we're probably going to get some good media support. Maybe we'll get to go to the media box at Parliament at the end of it for the last day of it. And then it'll be out there for all to see, to have a look at.
Maybe,
and hopefully if we can entertain people enough while giving them some hard facts on some hard subjects, make it a little bit fun, and maybe we'll get a good movement going.
Or maybe CTV or CBC will give up their desk for you. That'd be cool.
How do you do that?
Maybe we'll ask them.
Good.
That's all it takes.
We're getting to talk to a few mover and shakers in the media in the next 24, 48 hours.
Sure.
It's exciting. So I'm just kind of dragging here. So, my brother, thank you so much for being on the show.
It's a pleasure.
It's always great to see you face to face. It's a big world. Social media brings us all together. We're like all on the same page.
It feels like we're in the
But
same room.
we have to actually be on the same page. It's so hard. People only seem to respond to outrage and get angry, and then suddenly they're engaged. But we also need to have some cohesion and some unity as a community. So this is the Veteran Guerrilla Radio. We love you, and we'll see you soon. Actually, we're going to see you very shortly here.